What's up, world? We are back with another episode of the Father and Son podcast, hosted by the Father, aka my pop chef Bryce, as well as myself, the artist, aka Bryce Savoy. And in this podcast, we explore and discuss our shared love of this thing called hip hop. We unpack important cultural topics, and most importantly, we highlight those individuals who are preserving and keeping this thing we all love called hip hop alive. And with that, of course, I have to introduce our special guest of today's show. Her name is Miss Kiana, aka KJ Rose, the wonderful, talented KJ Rose, hailing from Southside Chicago. Shout out Chicago, a lot of love, a lot of family out there. Also a fellow HBCU graduate. FAMU, shout out to the FAMU family, right?
Yep.
Has worked with the likes of Clive Davis, worked with the likes of Janet Jackson, worked with the likes of Lil Nas X as an artist development, right? Also a performance media coach. And what the world may know her and refer her to as a talent whisperer. Being able to tap into people's talents, right, and energy and get the best out of them.
Yeah.
You have this thing which you also refer to yourself as a hype coach, right? Honing your personal experience. And that is powerful. That's everything.
Amen.
So without further ado, appreciate you for coming. How you doing today?
I'm great.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
To get this thing going.
Yeah, it's good to see you, man. I got to tell you, KJ, I'm a little bit envious because growing up, I wanted to be an A&R coach.
Really?
Yeah, I can't dance at all.
Okay.
But I love music, so I wrote in my high school book, I'm going to move to LA and work in A&R and music. So it's actually an honor to be next to somebody who's doing it, is doing it. So my first question is like, so I see you as a little kid in front of a mirror, dancing and singing. So talk to the audience and share with us your like evolution of your career, like from your childhood to where you are today.
Yeah.
Like some of those highlights.
It's funny because I feel like I would always hear, as much as I would like sing, I loved music, I loved singing. And I would hear, shut up, and so you asked me, was I singing with a hairbrush? And I don't remember that. I just remember like singing all the time. I was in the Soul Children of Chicago.
Nice.
I was also in the choir at Trinity United Church of Christ. And so I had this fervor, and, my mom would disagree with this, but she was really my first hype director. Like now she's more reserved. She acts like she doesn't remember those years. But my mother was a cheerleading coach.
Oh, wow.
And she was always about precision, enthusiasm, presence. And I was around that since the time I was a child. And so then the next step for me at 5 years, was it 5 or 7? I became the mascot, not the one that puts on suits and becomes an animal, but like the youngest cheerleader on the cheerleading team at Emmanuel Christian School, flipping off of the pyramids. And so I always attribute her for helping me kind of like hone this thing where people are always saying like, you're doing too much. And, I didn't know what that thing was. But then I had people like Frank Gatson saying, you got something. And people like Ben Vereen saying, I see something.
Wow.
So I knew there was something in this. I just had to keep being myself and not, be smaller or dim my light just so other people could feel comfortable. And so, but there was one overarching thing was that I had stage fright.
Really?
So I was good in the choir.
You had stage fright?
I didn't have stage. Let me say, I did. I didn't have it when I was cheering. Like, what you got to, right? I didn't have it when I was like doing the pom-pom on the pom-pom team. But when anyone singled me out, if Walt Whitman would have singled me out in the Soul Children of Chicago, like my stomach turned if he looked my way.
Got it.
I remember being in the choir at Trinity and someone, and the choir director at the time asking me to do a solo. And it was like the most trepidation I have ever felt. So much so that even though I was up there, I looked like I didn't want to be there. So it was almost like this line of defense where I was just like,
I could not see that.
Oh, I think I did Overjoyed. It was like, overjoyed. I have built. And my mother was like, well, why you gonna get up there if you
Yeah,
don't act
right,
like you want to be there? And I was
right.
like, what do you want from me? So it was a whole thing where it was like my body would have this adverse reaction to being on the stage. And even as an orator, if I had to recite something, but I will say, you know, on the contrast, the Emmanuel Christian School, we would have these chapel programs where we would each have to deliver some Bible verse or some line. And so that helped to build my confidence.
Okay.
So I've been probably building confidence since the age of 5,
Wow.
not even knowing it, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to moms. What's your mom's name?
Sylvia Henson Marshall.
Miss Sylvia, thank you for pushing KJ.
Yes.
Thank you for pushing her. Because and thank you. And thanks to you for ignoring those people that said, "Hey, you're doing too much," and having people around you that were saying, "No, this is your purpose. Like keep on going."
Yeah.
So you're a kid. You're doing stuff in high school, pom pom. You're doing stuff in church.
Yep.
When did it become a career for you?
Yeah. It took some time. I think after the choir, I would do some. I remember this guy in high school. I went to Flossmoor, Homewood Flossmoor after Whitney Young. And Monty, he was a singer and he would sing, you know, BB all the time. And he was like, we should do a BB and CC song. And, you know, so it was, you know, other people that says, I see something and kind of pushing me along the way. And then from there, I graduated and went to FAMU. And while I was there, you know, I had friends who enjoyed singing, but I didn't think that because I was the only one of 2 people that could sing within my crew, that constituted a full career. I was like, I don't think that, I mean, but we're also like looking at artists, you know, and hip hop artists, you know, and at the time, you know, it was Mary, it was Lauren, it was MC Light, and it was Anita Baker, and it was Phyllis Hyman and Stephanie Mills. And so I was like, surely that's what they do. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me just be in the music industry. And so my first internship was with Sony Music. And at that time, they had no relationship with the music industry. And so I was able to get credit for working at Sony Music during the summer. And then, you know, I've got to also give it to my sorors of Delta Sigma Theta, who would say, we've got this event coming up and we need singers. I was like, well, let me get you some. They said, we think it's
No, it's you. It's
and
you.
I was like, oh, no. And so before I knew it, I was like, when I think of home, I think of a place. It's like,
got into it. Come on now.
And so left there and moved to New York, working for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals by day.
Wow.
But the most important, one of the most important exchanges came from my good friend, John Platt, Big John, who I was introduced to by my line sister, Shelly Bishop. And they were like, at this point, Big John was working at EMI. And they were like, you know, he's in the business. You need to sing for him. And I was like, I'm not a clown. Why don't I just sing on the spot?
Yeah, like
Yeah, I was like, I'm not doing that. And it was funny because I can't remember exactly when, but there was a music conference going on in Orlando, I think. And like Big walked past us. And they were like, sing for Big. I was like, I'm not a clown.
So, people were just like, there he is, get in front of him.
Like, no, but that was really the stage fright talk.
Yeah.
And so Big John was like, well, I leave tomorrow. He was there for Shelly's graduation, and we were in her house in Tallahassee, Florida. He was there for a few days, and before I knew it, I was like, and I am telling you. And he put me with my first management group, Dave Nelson, Erskine Isaac. Dave Nelson, Erskine Isaac. Rest in peace, Dave.
Rest in peace.
But they saw something in me and believed until the rest of my belief could catch up and helped me to cultivate this thing. And so I was in the studio with people like, you know, Kayama Griffin and Dwayne Bastiani and just a lot of New York, you know, producers at the time and writing. And, you know, I was like, am I a writer? But it was like, but you need songs. So I think you're a writer. So it was like building and cultivating this thing. And my first professional gig came from getting a call at about 11 o'clock at night from Dave saying that they need a singer for this particular song. It was, I need to get,
Don't worry about it. So it was almost midnight. They called you late
It was
night.
almost
Right,
midnight.
late night.
Yeah.
And Tony Dofat. Ooh,
Tony Dolfat.
Tony Dofat is his name. Okay, I'm coming back. So I get a call from from my manager, Dave Nelson, who says, Tony Dofat is looking for a singer for this song. I have no idea what it is, but I know that my superpower is showing up. Sometimes people don't know.
Superpower.
They
That's
don't
a
know
big
what I'm
superpower,
coming.
showing up. That's
they don't
half the
showing
battle.
up, right? Because I could have been like, man, I got to get up at 7 o'clock to go to work at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals.
True.
That was my day job.
Okay.
And so I was like, no, I'm on my way. I get there. I have no idea that it's for Heavy D. And before I know it, I'm singing a song called Big Daddy. You can be my big.
I love that song.
Yeah.
I love that song.
And so I had no idea.
Shout out Heavy D.
I don't think they
Rest
knew
in peace,
that it was
Heavy D.
Rest in peace, Heavy D.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't think they thought it would be a single. Shout out to Dio Blyton as well, who was responsible for having me on the song. And so, yeah, I don't think they thought it would be a single, but imagine driving down the West Side Highway and hearing Big Daddy with my soror, my ism. Nakaya D. Brown was with me. And so I was like, oh my God, I think I can do this thing.
Yes.
You know, when you hear yourself on the radio, it's another thing. And even today, it's funny because this DJ Mark in Chicago will still play that song. Now we got Kiana Henson in the house. And I was like, you do know that nobody knows what you're talking about. But thank you for the love.
That's a classic, KJ. I mean, you said so many, you dropped so many nuggets there. What I heard, one thing I heard too was like the importance of relationships, right? And that keeping and maintaining relationships and people pouring into you can put you in places that you don't even think you could be in.
Yeah.
The second thing you talked about is you said, you know, my superpower is showing up, right? A lot of times people will think that your opportunity is going to come at 8, 9 a.m. on Tuesday when you don't have any. No, sometimes it'll come at midnight when you're working another job and you have to sacrifice and say, I'm still going to go and show up.
Yeah.
And then it ends up becoming a hit that's on the radio. I still play that song and I still love your singing behind that. I can sing that melody every day. So you just said so many powerful things. What me and Bryce took. So Bryce is an artist. So what we do, we talk a lot about performing, right?
Yeah.
Like we'll watch certain people perform, or he may go to a concert and he'll see somebody and he'll say, you know, they were such and such, or they were just okay, or it's probably more so me saying that. I'm always like very critical, just from a like, you got to be there out there entertaining people. Like, how much time did you put in that? So I know Bryce had a question just going into the performance piece that he wanted to ask you.
Yeah, like just speaking about, like he said, performances, right? Especially being an artist, for doing it for a long time. Now, where I'm at now currently with performing wasn't where I started. I started off horrible, you know, just like you said, stage fright, not having the confidence, right?
Yeah.
And the reps that I've gotten in along the way has propelled me to it, you know, to a level to where I feel like my performance is where it needs to be, right? It's always room for improvement, but I'm in a good space. And I go to these shows, some artists who have more, let's say, notoriety, are on these stages and they're performing, and I just see, unless it's like a legacy artist, like the newer artists, the love, the appreciation, the things that, you know, are really important. A performance is like the most intimate connection, you know, an artist can have between the artist and his fans, right? And his or her fans. And so I guess my question to you is, you know, being in that space and been doing it for a long time, helping artists be able to, you know, really put on great performances. What's your take on, I think, the current state of performances, live performances, and what do you see could be done differently or improved, or what's your overall take on it, performance?
Well, I think what happens and why I get called most often is that there are artists who have such a gift, and, you know, artists like Lil Nas who have such a brilliance in how they're able to create, you know, songs that resonate with us, songs that become, you know, trending songs, and then the data to go along with it. And so then that automatically like elevates them to be exposed to record labels, to an audience, and not the traditional way anymore, right? That's out of the door. And so now they're getting signed based on this talent, but not based on having performances on the board quite yet.
Right.
Right. And so prior to kind of like this new wave, you know, you worked out all your performance before you came and before you were even recognized for the song, right? Because it's like, okay, but can they perform? But now they got a hot song. We're gonna make sure
they can perform.
Right? Which I respect however you got there, but you can't circumvent the process. Never.
No shortcuts.
You know what I'm saying?
No
So I think just I loved how Lil Nas had such the vigor and the hunger. He just wanted to be better, you know? I don't even want to say better because he hadn't been doing it. He wanted to create what would be considered his best.
Okay.
Right? And blow that out of the water with him being the only barometer for that. Right? But then you've got somebody like Nas.
Yes. Shout out to Nas.
It's like, KJ, I just need to make sure I'm on stage. And I was like, say less. And so, you know, he had never headlined a concert, right? He, I think, had done a few with different ensembles.
Yeah. Never headlining something.
Right. This was his first time.
Which one? What show are you referring to?
The Madison Square Garden show. That was this year.
Yeah, I heard about
Mass
that.
Appeal one or one before? Is this the most recent one?
No,
You said
this was
Square.
it was Madison Square Garden.
Barclays. Okay.
Yep. And it was just him, and he brought on guests, but he was the only person on the bill.
Stage. Yeah.
And so I respected that a legacy artist still felt like there was more to be conquered, you know? And so I remember going to the rehearsal and, you know, I was like, well, let me see the show. And I sat there and I was like, you know, writing my notes. And he was like, so you got some notes for me? I was like, I kind of whipped the thing out. I was like, do I? And so I was just so happy that I did not have to be anything different. Like I turned into a beast. You know, because I'm so excited.
You wanted the best for him. Yeah.
And so he was seated and I was standing and I was like, you're the only messenger we got.
True.
If you're not giving us the songs and painting the picture and telling us the story, who is going to do it?
Yeah, amen.
And so I was like, and you can't sing these songs like you've been doing them for years. I want to feel like it's my first time.
Woo.
I want to feel like it's your first time. I need your energy to abound in this room. I want to make sure you leave no lyric behind.
Yeah.
No wasting of sound. If you're moving across the stage, it ain't for transportation. It's for you to tell us the story, to push the narrative. Yeah. He was like, hi, sis, hi. And I was like, oh, this is the best ever. So
this is a huge arena. I mean, I'm sure the way in which you have to perform in period, but when you talk about that big of a space,
it's a different type of time.
Yeah.
I'm hearing you even say that, it's just giving me goosebumps. I'm excited, even not even being there, but picturing that moment.
Oh, it was great.
And that's the power of what you bring. Like I've seen, you know, clips of you in the studio with different artists or just coaching people, and it's like it's rare. I feel like in most spaces where somebody brings their energy, leaves their ego right at the door, pride at the door, and it's like, how can I make this person that I'm working with the best that they can be?
Yep.
And if you can do that, that's success. And I've seen you do that time and time again. So I think that's just a testament to you. Now, the other flip side of that, I was reading the article, one of your interviews, and you mentioned how you got into a studio with the artist to work on the performance.
Yeah.
And they were kind of like, what am I here for? Like, I don't need it, blah, blah, blah. And you said, hey, I've seen your performances, X, Y, and Z. I've noticed that, you know, is that what you do? You kind of drop off at the end. He like, or he or she was like, well, yeah, whatever. That's what I do. But what you did to kind of like, I think help inspire them, like, hey, I know you want to have that Grammy performance.
Yeah.
I know you want to have that big X, Y, and Z performance.
Yeah.
This is what it's going to take to get there. So I guess how do you balance like one thing, wanting to, you know, bring your expertise, and something else you said, people don't care about the past. You can say I did X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Yeah. People don't care about that. It's like it's where we're at now, what you're doing now. So how do you, I think, I would just say even balance the ego, the pride, and because people can take advantage of your time, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're here to do a job. How do you kind of see past that and help artists open up?
Right. Well, I mean, it is a lot of releasing your own ego, right? And I have to set my own kind of like mind right before I walk in. And a lot of times I have to know that I'm in the service business, right? And I don't think that any artist that is assigned to me is by coincidence. So I always feel like I am meant to be and add value to their life in some way. So once I start there, then it allows room for people not to move the way you'd like them to, right? Or you expect them to. But as an artist, like I extend that grace as an artist myself, right? And so, you know, and I try to make sure that they already know they're winning already. Like, and when I show up at, if it's not their idea, if it's the idea of the record label, then you initially feel like I'm coming in to right a wrong. So anybody's gonna feel like, you know, I don't need this, you know, it does kind of promote this vibrato. And I'm always saying, man, you've done a great job so far. Like, if you benching 85, I just want to take you to 150. That's it. You know, and so it's helping them to understand if I'm in the room, then they're investing in you, you know? And so it's the way you speak, you know, and the way you deliver it. And again, like, nobody cares if I walk into, you know, a new artist and session. Nobody cares what I did the day before, how grand it was. If I was at the Grammys with an artist, nobody cares. You know, and so because it's about them, I have to make sure that they know that my job is to push you beyond your perceived capacity. Like, whatever you're doing, that is great. It has gotten you to where you are now, but I want you to go higher. And so how can we do that? Like, we're in this together. Like, I'm not standing above you. I'm not below you. I'm merely just saying, I see something and I want to take you higher. And that's it. Like, I got to know that I've left the room with you better off having had me in it. That's my goal.
That's powerful. I mean, it reminds me of what I learned in managing people, the model of servant leadership, right? When you say stepping in and knowing that you are of service to that individual, right? And kind of makes them put their guard down. And then the power of language, right? Coming in with a compliment, right? Builds into someone's psyche, like, oh, okay, they believe in me.
It disarms them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Wow. And I say to them, I'm not here to give you anything you don't already possess. You know, my job is to push you beyond, and it's also to agitate and irritate areas of potential that maybe you have not even tapped into yet, right? It's just lying dormant. But it don't mean that it's not existing.
Right.
I'm just here as an irritant. Use me as an irritant, you know?
I like that. I like that.
Irritant.
Before we move on, right? And some of these gems you dropped, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Now, if y'all want the rest, the Rose Effect.
You got to pick that
8 steps to delivering the performance of your life. Where can they find this at? Where can they find this book at?
It is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of your mediums. And then I've also created Power Chants. It's called Adjust Your Crown. And they are just palatable, motivational, bite-sized gems of like motivation. Just when you don't have time to look at a whole docuseries or TED Talk, it is, how can I reset, you know, my core to remind myself of my dopeness before I walk into this new situation. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
You got me ready to perform right now. Like, motivational, like a motivational coach. I mean, I feel like a lot of that stuff, like you said, when it comes to performing, that's really all it is, right? The ability to go on stage and command a crowd and go into an audience. Like, I know for myself, when I perform now, if I'm performing a new audience who may never have heard of me before, I take it as a challenge. It's like, okay, by the end of this show, I need to make sure, and I can tell by people's interactions and how they greet me maybe after, or even on stage, that I did my job. If I can do that every time, that's a success. And so you bringing that out of people, I feel like that's just, that just is no word. That's priceless, really. That's a priceless skill.
That's
a gift.
She's walking in her purpose, like we talk about walking in purpose. Right? You're walking in purpose. I remember my stepmother, his grandmother, gave me a book years ago, Purpose-Driven Life. And at the time that she gave it to me, I wasn't there yet. I didn't understand it, but years later, I go back and look at it, and I'm like, oh man, I get it now. And I see so many people that are doing that, and you're one of those individuals. What I'm excited about is that you've also not necessarily transitioned, but you also started hosting events. So tell me, like, that's fascinating to me. Like, tell me how that came about, and is there a difference between hosting an event compared to like doing a musical performance?
Right. Well, I think before the hosting, it was the corporate speaking. right?
Okay.
So it was taking the same methodology that I poured into artists, and now pouring into executives. Because I declare that we're all artists, right? And artists, wherever you occupy the most space, that's your stage, right? That means what you're doing can't be duplicated. It is an art form. And when you really look at just, especially during COVID, I think the morale was low for a lot of companies. And they were looking to just kind of give a burst of energy. And my job was to come in and also help them access the assets that they, were born with before they even contributed that asset to the collective. Individually, what is your why? Right? Helping them to get to that. So it's really the same process. This may be the traditional stage of singing, but this is the traditional stage. This is the stage of the boardroom.
Gotcha.
And so what are you saying? Why should I care? Why do you care? And what is your why? And I think whatever you choose to do in life, if you're not doing it from that, then it's just a myriad of movement that has no real purpose. And that's exhausting. To know that you have moved all day and there was no fulfillment on your part, and maybe it didn't land the way you hoped it would land. But if it's coming from a space of passion, of kind of research that you've done on your own to remember, what it is you do it for, then it will always hit different.
Wow. I mean, I was recently reading a book that my brother-in-law had called, Making Vision Stick. And one of the things that he says in there is that you have to consistently, constantly, enthusiastically remind people of why you're doing what you're doing, the purpose of it. And and he was talking from a corporate setting, right? Because like you said, like you talked about during COVID, like morale was down, life gets in the way every day. So you can start something off that's magnificent, but if you aren't constantly pouring in to people and telling people why it's so important, and you don't have that enthusiastic and that vision, then people forget, right? And they go in all different kind of directions when that happens. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just thinking, like, as you guys were talking, KJ, just sharing, your story and your life mission. What's the beauty, and I think your story and a lot of people, our viewers, can relate to, is just being open to all the ways in which God calls you to do something, right? Now, let's imagine back when you had the Heavy D record. If you just said, that's the only way I'm going to do this music, if I can do that every time, if I can get that feeling every time, if I could be a singer and an artist in front of the camera, all these different things. And I'm sure, you go through those journeys as an artist, but it's a reimagining of your vision and being open to all the different ways in which you can help. Now you're not only just being an artist, but like you said, a performance coach, a motivational speaker, all these different things you were able to do because you allowed yourself to be open to all the possibilities of how you can help.
That is true.
And use your purpose and use your why. So I think from that standpoint, I'm sure it gets hard, right? But you always have a plethora of inspiration, a plethora of motivation to do what you're doing, because you can tap into all these different sources. And you're feeding into people, which means the universe is going to feed back to you, just rightfully so. Like just automatically, that's how universal law. And so I just want to share that with our viewers, because I think that's, a lot of times we get so caught and stuck in how our vision should look, right, to us. This is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. If it doesn't happen any other way, I'm not doing it. And a lot of times you can miss out on some of the biggest opportunities if that's like, imagine that Heavy D call. Like he said, I'm
asleep. Actually, I'm asleep.
I'm actually asleep. I'm actually asleep, getting ready for work. But let me something in you said, no, let's go. Let me show up. So that's beautiful.
It's funny. There are two things that when you say that I'm reminded of. One was I had done the first Heavy record, and then I was supposed to be in the video, and it didn't work out, and I was very hurt, and I'm like, of course, I did it, I'm good, we ain't never, and then right, that's the other part. Okay, I did it, we good, and so then I got a call to do the remix of the song. Oh wow! So the remix was like, no, that's not it. No, that's the different song.
Big Daddy.
It was Anyway, we're just gonna say the remix.
The remix, y'all.
The remix of the song.
Y'all know what it is.
I mean, like it's like different categories.
Yes.
And so, my first thought was like, I'm good. You fooled me once, not
Found
again.
out right?
I don't have to go back here. We've done it. That's it. And then I was like, okay, but then if you don't do it, then they'll call somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I had to say, while it hurt your feelings, they don't know you well enough to try to hurt your feelings on purpose. Right. That could not have been their goal. You just happen to be one of the, what do they call it? You become a casualty.
Casualty.
Of whatever was happening in there, right? Yeah. And so I remember saying, okay, well, I said this to myself, I'm going to go, but me and Heavy are not friends. I'm going to do my work and I'm going to keep moving.
Yeah, you have put that, talking to yourself.
Boom, yeah. Sing my song. We not laughing.
I'm going to be very serious. Just do what I need to do.
Now I know what it is. And so we get there and he is like so jovial. And I don't know if he knew what had happened, and, you know, or not. But it was like, you know, I'm such a pushover on the joy category. I was like, all right. And he ended up like just giving me really great advice. He was the one that said, I think you should go into acting. And he just really poured into my life. And I think about if I had sat there in my feelings of something, of not recovering quicker from the disappointment, right? It's like something that happened on yesterday. Yes, okay, grieve it. But then you may miss the opportunity in the next day by lamenting in that for so long. And so that ended up just being a wonderful relationship with him and Tony Dofat. And then another story I thought about was when I was working for Clive Davis. And even though I was at his desk and taking calls, and you know, before that I was at the front desk and Alicia would walk in and Swizz would walk in and Jennifer Hudson, and I'm like, who do you want me to call? And so, you know, and I was at Clive's desk and I knew I wanted to be a singer. And then on my lunch, I would take, you know, meetings with like Larry Jackson and you know, Peter Edge and you know, they said, we hear where you're going, you know, but keep at it. You know what I'm saying? With respect.
Respectfully.
And so I was like, okay, that's cool, it's cool. And I remember getting a call from Carolyn Williams, who was in marketing. I think now she runs it. And she was saying, hey, in my brain, I'm like, oh, you must like my song. Like, I'm about to get a record deal. We like your ability to perform. We like, you know, your stage presence. Can you coach some of our artists at your records? And so in that moment of going back to your point of thinking it should be one thing that I was going to sing for the rest of my life and not allowing, you know, you to be more than just one noted, right? There's a duality, you know, to a lot of what we do. And so I had to make that conscious decision, you know, because a lot of times if you feel like you're doing one thing in lieu of something not working, then you just become bitter at the thing.
Okay. Right?
As opposed to saying this one thing is the natural progression and it's the and, it's not the or, and I can do both. And I think what makes me the performance director I am is because I have been on stage with thousands, whether it was singing background for Britney Spears or for Justin Timberlake or for Carl Thomas or, you know, and so I've done that. So now I know what that feeling is. Like, when I'm coaching you, I know, you know, when to back off. I know when you got a little bit more. Like that you can't read about. No. Right? That's understanding, studying someone's capacity. You know, I know when they say they don't want to do something, then that means that we shouldn't do it 5 more times. Hey, maybe we should just sit down and talk about it, right? And get you. And so a lot of my downloads, you know, that I get from God on how can we rectify this situation? I appreciate, because I know it goes beyond, you know, whatever your lesson plan was, you know. And so I remember, you know, Lil Nas saying, you know, I said, what would make this feel like your show? And he said, I want to play the trumpet. And I was like, okay, have you played before? He was like, nope, but it's just 3 notes. And that thing resonated. So anything that, I mean, and I feel like we stretched each other in that time, because now anything that seems like it's going to give me a little bit of trepidation or anything that I fear, I'm like, it's just 3 notes. Get it. You know, and I think, you know, that generation, for us, it was like, practice, practice. Let's go. For them, it's let's go. practice. And I respect it, you know? And so
let's jump in the water.
Well, and he played the trumpet, you know? And then but it also taught me about the power of speaking your thing aloud sometimes, right? And the manifestation of that, because as soon as I walked back in the room, I said, I'm going to need a trumpet. And they were like, who's playing the trumpet? And the minute I said it, the engineer's wife had a friendship with Stevie Wonder's trumpeter.
Wow.
And so before we knew it, he's in the corner. So it's like trusting yourself
that trust and all that.
to calling that thing to be, you know? And so nobody else might get it. But if it is a burning desire for you, then you might have to usher this thing along until everyone else catches up.
Yeah, if it's your vision, it's not for everybody to see.
Yeah.
So oftentimes people need to see it before they can believe it. Right. So you put that into motion. Let's talk about the music, Bryce. Like what are you listening to now?
Let's see.
Who's inspiring you? I find myself, I've been pushing myself to just kind of explore different music, because I find myself going back to the 90s, 80s, 2000s, 70s, and then I'm rotating the same songs. And so I'm like, I got to be some more stuff out there that I can listen to. So I asked Bryce sometime, I asked my other son, Nick, they give me folks. But like, who are you listening to right now?
Erica Campbell has an album called Lord, I Thank You.
Lord, I Thank You.
And, you know, it hits my soul. And she's my first lady, Cali Worship. Shout out to Warren Campbell.
Shout out.
And so, like, you know, like most of us in traffic when we're driving, you know, it's like, what's making me like, da? And so it's her album. It's Kirk Franklin's album, Father's Day. And, like I'm blasting it. Victoria Monet, like, you know, we like On Your Mama, but then there's one that's like Last Goodbye. And I'm like, so let's make it a da-da. I mean, it just touches my spirit. And I am in the car like, a bump, bump, bump. Coco Jones, you know, I remember when she first moved here.
Okay, yeah.
And I was connected with her when she started did her first music video. I think I was in it.
Wow.
So I've known her and her mom for a really long time. And I was able to coach Tyla to prepare her for Chris Brown, a lot of showcases here before she went on the road with Chris Brown. So she, you know, make me sweat, And just, you know, I'm just grateful because I get artists. Number one, if you have already began the journey of being an artist, there is an innate hunger that you already have, right? And sometimes you just don't know how to navigate it. You don't know where to place it. And so I just get excited, you know, when working with new artists and so those are just a few of the people. A plethora more, but I'm gonna stop there because I don't want to get in trouble.
No, so you just gave me some folks to tap into and listen to.
Y'all haven't heard Make Me Sweat?
No.
You haven't heard Water? What is happening?
Like he said, you
She's
know.
from South Africa.
Okay, I'm on it now. I'm on it now.
Before, but like,
okay, just stop.
I'm going back. I mean, I'm in a space too. Similar to him, I'm in a space too of exploring new music.
Killer Mike, my God.
Michael album. I listened to that. I have heard that.
Shout out to No ID. Shout out to Warren Campbell. Shout out
everybody loves that.
I mean,
the album is great.
My God.
One of the best albums.
Courtney. Yeah. Oh my God. It's the vocals, you know, choir for me. Yeah. And No ID did an album. He did some songs on my album back in the day.
Shout out to No ID.
Shout out to No ID. And shout out to Derek Angeletti, D-Dot.
Yeah.
You know, I still listen to the album that I'm on, Big's album, Life After Death.
Oh, wow.
I'm on a song called Player Hater.
Wait.
Wait.
Hold on.
I thought you had done your research. I mean, you was doing good.
I missed that part. So you are on.
Come on, I think I'm
Life After Death.
Come on.
What song said it?
Player Hater.
Player Hater.
I'm listening to that
Class.
after this.
Yes. I'm on AZ's album.
Woo.
Bet you don't know.
Do or Die?
I don't know. I just said, bet you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. You
Come on, hip hop pop. If you don't know, we're going to shout. Yo.
Yes, that's that Najee mix.
Yeah. But I did all these things at the age of 10. So.
still going strong. So 50 years of hip hop, something that we've been celebrating, right? For some time now. We've been talking about, music a lot and where we've been, but also where we're going. Yeah. So our question, last question we like to end the show with is, you could wave magic wand, right? You can have whatever you want in the hip hop space.
Yeah.
What some things moving forward next 50 years would you like to see, and what's some stuff you would like to take away? Keep or take away.
Let's see.
Think about it.
I would like more hip hop energy that is endearing and celebratory of women. Would like more the celebratory of men.
Right.
And that's empowering. And in terms of taking away, like, you never know somebody's story, and to have the freedom to tell your story, whether one agrees with it or not, is what my life is built on.
Gotcha.
And so I don't know if there's anything I would take away. I would like to lean further into, certain things. And, while I'm thinking about it, I've got to shout out my brother, Jax, hip hop artist, and, Ajax, Allen.
Hey.
And so I remember he was able to, we were in a group.
Oh, wow.
And then, we have different varying
accounts or whatever.
Thank you. Accounts of how the group ended. And so it was just he and I. It was called Jackson Rose. And, if I could wave a wand, I would, there would be a resurgence of Jackson Rose. But, he got a chance to open for KRS-One, and I sang background for KRS-One.
Wow.
When I look back into the history of, my relationship with hip hop, I've also got to shout out Dead Prez, Fam Ewens put me on a song called They Schools. So I've had a deep, deep connection to hip hop for a long time, to Common, Fam Ewan. And so, that's what I would say in terms of how I would like it to evolve. And maybe I got a few bars. Maybe in the next 50 years, I got a few bars. Empowerment bars. I'm like the first empowerment artist. I'm like, you are the yes you've been waiting for.
The Rose Effect. The Rose Effect.
I love it. The Rose Effect.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure and an honor really to have you on the show, right? It's just like you've been able to just, even in this short time of us speaking to you, even open my eyes to the possibilities of just where this thing called music can take you. It's a journey. It's a journey like no other, and I really appreciate it. So we can talk to people like yourself. It's inspiring, and it motivates me to keep going and keep pushing further. And so I think before we close out, let people know where they can find you, anything you want to share, anything you want to plug. This is the time to get.
Can I plug my book?
Yes,
of course.
I mean, in that one, so people can get the go to the link.
Yeah.
Did I put it?
The magazine or the book?
Yeah. You ain't gonna make it.
Waymaker.
The Waymaker. So yes, Kiana, KJ Rose Henson, can be found on IG at KJ Rose Effect. Twitter, the same thing. TikTok, I think that's KJ Rose 24. And I'm also in a new magazine called Waymaker. I have a Pulitzer ad. Bam, bam, bam. I want to thank Lewis Carr and
so everybody can see that. Look at
Maya.
that powerful visual. Beautiful
And
picture.
Beautiful.
Yeah, everybody see?
Yes.
Okay.
All cameras got to see that.
Yes. And then this is my favorite. You know, I'm always interested in how people digest like who I am and what I do. And a lot of times I try to correct them. I'm like, no, I da da da. And then I just sometimes listen and, you know, and I think one person said, you know, KJ, you're the ultimate uplifter. And I was like, oh, okay, I like that.
Yes, you are.
And then
yes, you are.
someone said, you're a battery pack. And then I was like, I like that. And then someone said, you are the most important stop on the road to stardom.
Wow.
And I was like, come on, Amber.
Come on.
That's it. That's that one. That's the one.
And then Lewis Carr
Look at that beautiful picture.
The star polisher.
called me the star
Polished.
polisher, which I received. Thank you. Thank you, Maya Darasol, the photographer, and thank you to the entire team. And
Beautiful.
yeah, and so I look forward to connecting with everybody.
Yeah. So pick that Waymaker magazine up.
It's online. It's online.
You got to get her book. And then you also have to follow her. And I'd just like to say in closing, too, like to piggyback off Bryce, it's just a pleasure to be in your presence. You are walking in your purpose. And so we just look forward to continuing to see you climb and the impact that you're making on people's lives. I mean, amazing. So thanks for coming by.
Hey, man. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Stay tuned for more.
Hey.
Nice, fun.
Yay.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah.